This is a case of a dispute between two parties. Let's call them Joe and Bob, not their real names. Joe believes Bob was living at home A for the past year and a half. Bob said he was living at home B for the past year and a half. Well, they couldn't hire someone to follow Bob around because they were looking at historical data. So Joe went to the cell phone companies, filed a subpoena, and obtained Bob's cell phone records for the last year and a half to try to determine where Bob was actually living. Was he living at home B or was he living at home A? Well, I was able to look at these records. We got two sets of records from AT&T. We got a CDR file, or call detail record, and we got what AT&T calls historical precision data, or HPLI, we'll call it for short. The HPLI data is estimation of the phone location. CDR is the location of the towers that handled the phone call or text message. So let's look at the HPLI. So I plotted these on Google Earth. Each one of these red dots is the estimation by the network of where the phone is. If I click on one of these dots, you can see there's at least 6 or 7 points at dots at that exact location. They're plotted right on top of each other. I'll click on one of those. So this gives me the latitude, longitude of that point, some other information, the date and time, both GMT and local time. It also gives me an error factor. In this case, it's 300 meters. So the network is saying that phone is estimated to be anywhere within a radius of 300 meters from the location of this dot. I'm not going to draw those error circles. In a normal case, I would draw a circle around that with a 300 meter radius to show the potential location of that phone. In this case, it's not necessary to just clutter up the data. So these are the points, but as I showed you before, these points could get plotted on top of each other. It's very hard to tell if Bob was living at home A or home B. There's not a lot of points at home B, so it gives you a little bit of a clue, but it doesn't really tell you a lot about home A until we do a heat map. A heat map will take into account points. See, all these points are at that one location, but we can't see that by just looking at this plot. We think it's just one point. If I do a heat map takes into account the density of points. So it'll look at all the records in this area and it'll make the color more red. So the higher density of records, the more red, and then as the density of records reduces, it turns orange and yellow and then green and then eventually blue. And you can see the much higher density here around home A. There's some other stuff over here, perhaps that's where Bob works or where he goes more often. But this gives you a pretty clear indication of where Bob spends most of his time. Let's go look at the CDR data. Let's turn this off. If I click on the CDR, you can see this shows you tower locations. So this will show you the towers that are handling the calls. Again, if he makes more than one call at off a single tower, that gets plotted on top of each other. So we can't tell a lot about how many calls are being made at that tower by looking at this plot. But if we do a heat map, I'll turn that on, we can see that there's a lot of, by the color of the heat map, and I'll zoom in on home A here, it's a very high density around this set of towers here. So we can make a pretty good conclusion that there's no activity at home B, so it's obvious he wasn't living at home B. Much of the activity is around home A, so there's a high probability this is where Bob actually was living. I clicked on that point, and these are the actual number of calls at that tower. Each one of these records is a call. So that's would be my conclusion. Definitely wasn't living at home B over the last year, and there's a very high probability he was living at home A and within this area.